All right. Hey, everybody.
Jam.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, doing good. Excited for, episode 4. I'm here in Abu Dhabi this week with some of the team. And yeah, things are going really well over here. There's a ton of crypto conferences going on all at the same time, some traditional fintech conferences overlapping as well. And today was the first day of Breakpoint, so lots of things to discuss around the conference side, around where crypto is developing, and how to stay safe as well. So yeah, um, thanks everybody, and for those tuning in, I'm Nikita. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Chain Patrol. We're joined by Juan, who leads growth on our team. I'll pass it over to Juan for maybe a quick intro.
Yeah, hey everybody, great to see everybody here again. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I lead growth at Chain Patrol, working alongside our customers, partners, and companies in this Web3 space. So yeah, excited to chat here in another episode. So yeah, over to you, Wimi.
Hi everyone. I'm Wimi. I'm an ambassador for Chain Patrol. I've been doing security work in this space for 4 years now. 4+ years it is. And yeah, there are so many topics to discuss, and I'm looking forward to the show with Nikita and Juan again. So, Nikita, you said you are in the Emirates today. So, there's been the Abu Dhabi Finance Week. I think it closed today, if I'm correct, right?
Yep. And so there was a couple events going on. So there we had Bitcoin Mina, we had Abu Dhabi Finance Week, which I think just wrapped up, and now we're at Breakpoint today. And so quite an intense week. The Bitcoin event was very interesting. We saw Sailor and CZ both presenting, so quite an intense mix there. And yeah, I think the interesting thing about the whole Bitcoin ecosystem is, you know, there's the difference between their conference and a lot of others is, there was like a lot more miners, a lot more like literally people selling hardware to like mass mine Bitcoin on their like proof of work network, and at like industrial scales. And that was a lot of the companies that were present there. Less, people maybe building apps on top of it or other things, because right, it's not really a network that you build so many apps on outside of maybe lightning payments and other areas. But to many people that's a feature and not a bug, right? It's that, the stability of the network and widespreading. And there was, some really interesting presentations done by Sailor, especially around just how he sees basically all banks starting to adopt Bitcoin, all, how to issue credit on top of it, how to issue all sorts of different, new financial mechanisms on top. And I think he's also really pushing for governments to adopt Bitcoin as part of their strategy as well, right? From the presentations that I've seen, and it honestly makes a lot of sense, is just adopting a national strategy around Bitcoin and making sure that it's part of, either your reserves or your wealth fund investments and all this on all of this. And so that was really interesting, and I think that's honestly going to be happening sooner rather than later. There's a lot of countries that are taking a very close look at this, many already deploying their kind of government treasuries into Bitcoin as well, making it part of their portfolio, and more waking up to the fact that this is a really strong mechanism as part of their just whole financial infra. So that was quite an interesting event. Then there was Abu Dhabi Finance Week. We went to the kind of some of the fintech events specifically. There was a ton of banks. There was a ton of ton of fintechs. But the interesting thing is there was really like a lot of the panels. One, there was like a ton more. This conference is even bigger than any I would say regular kind of crypto conference. But there was a whole mix of like on the same stage you have people that are like executives at banks, and then people working on DeFi protocols or like exchanges. And it's interesting to see these two worlds are starting to bleed together. and a lot of these organizations are really taking a big interest into what's going on, in crypto, how to make it part of their strategy, how to build on top of crypto rails, on top of stable coins, especially, is a big one. And yeah, that's been really, really interesting to see. So lots of cool stuff. And then Breakpoint has just started. There's always a great energy there. Lots of people building, lots of, like, literally the amount of announcements today was insane. Just like product announcement after product announcement after product announcement. And that's something I can maybe pass to you guys in a moment on in your thoughts on the kind of like Solana ecosystem and what you're seeing there. What I've been really seeing is just like the pace of shipping and the really focus they put on apps, on putting things in users' hands, is really great. I think it's something that the entire crypto space as a whole is realizing we really need, is just like, how do we get crypto in the hands of users? How do we make it better than even, traditional apps? What are the unique benefits of crypto? And this has been really one of the key narratives at Breakpoint, is just like lots of real world apps being built out that are just like, you can't even really tell that you're not using like a regular like savings app or anything else like that, except it works all the time. It doesn't shut down on weekends, and you're getting better APYs, right? And so it's literally like finance, but better. But yeah, if you guys have anything you've seen in the Solana ecosystem that's been interesting to you guys out of, what people are building, any projects, or just like overall kind of like thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. I see the same, Nikita, like a lot of companies build on top of Solana, but not only like DeFi protocols as we see with other networks, but mostly like banking apps where you can basically receive money from, I don't know, like a US transfer, a wire transfer, different parts, not only to manage like a crypto thing, but also on the traditional way. So yeah, I have been that developing on the Solana ecosystem for sure. And yeah, Solana as a whole, I think a few years ago, it was like the network that was all the time like stopping, like they had like these problems on the network side of things. But it has been like a while that I don't see that, at least 2-3 years. So definitely they've made like really big progress, because right now, not only on the market side of that Solana as a whole has right now, but also the companies developing and creating like apps on top of that. So yeah, definitely agree with you. Really great that you are there in the conference. I'm also curious to know, like, if the same people that you met in the other Bitcoin conferences are in the Solana conference right now, or do you see like some change of people right now?
Yeah, there's a few people overlapping, but honestly, like completely different audiences. At the Bitcoin conference, it's more like, people are really focused around just the message and spreading it, and they're all very concentrated on one thing, right? Like Bitcoin is like money, or it's like your reserve, and just focus on that. There was even like tons of people talking about just like selling merch for Bitcoin and all of this other stuff. But Solana is a lot more about building apps and using Solana as like the infra layer, right? And so we saw quite a lot. Yeah, I would say quite a different audience. I saw some familiar faces, but yeah, it's interesting because like crypto isn't just one thing, right, anymore. It's not just there's one group of crypto people. There's completely different audiences. There's like completely different segments of this industry now. And they're all overall bringing like digital currency to the whole world. So it's really exciting.
Would you say, Nikita, that the Solana crowd is a bit more nerdy than the Bitcoin crowd?
Yeah, there was a lot. It's in their own ways, but yeah, there's a lot of developers there. Tons of engineers. There's literally like an area called like the CTO zone, and so yeah, a lot of it has been. I think it actually hits a really nice balance between being very engineering focused and at the same time being very product focused and getting all of these like complex crypto topics into an area that's actually understandable to the average user and how they can benefit. So I would say very technical underpinnings, but bring it to, actually thinking, okay, how do we go from I'm explaining some complex like mechanism behind proof of stake and forget about that for a second, and how does this actually affect your daily life?
Yeah, I would imagine like the crowd, like if I imagine a crowd on a Bitcoin conference, I would imagine like a lot of banking people and like executive or C-level people showing up, right? And then where it has the contrast to Solana, I would think there are a lot more builders where in the Solana ecosystem, which are probably showing up as
Yeah. So we've actually seen a lot of institutions at the Solana conference as well as builders,
Okay.
and so there's actually both. I think the thing with Bitcoin is that people know what it is and they roughly understand what to do with it already. So like they're kind of like, we just either add it on the balance sheet and put some of our reserves in it or not, right? With Solana, the interesting thing is they're actually bringing how do we tokenize certain things that we already have, like certain like real world asset tokenization or changing some of our putting our stocks on chain and all this other stuff. So there they actually need to come in and understand how can we take what we've already built in the financial world and make use of these financial rails. So that was actually the interesting thing is I haven't seen too much, bankers themselves, but some people from quite a few people from like different financial institutions that are like, either the leader of like a certain like crypto department or they're building or they're like, somebody technical from the organization coming in to learn like how do I actually build on these new financial rails.
Yeah, that's very interesting because in Germany we have this thing called Solana Super Team Germany. I've been on a podcast with
There's a
them.
lot of
Like,
super team people here.
yeah, they got like all over the world. They got their departments or whatever, but the German one especially. I was on a podcast with them like 2 weeks ago, which was a bit more focused around security and how you can like stay safe in the space. Not Solana specifically because I'm a pretty noob at that. But hey, we live and we learn, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there's like there's a lot to keep up with, and I think that's the thing. To maybe just concluding kind of thoughts on Breakpoint is that there's a lot of education here, and they deliver it in a quite easy and digestible way. And also, one thing I just love about it is like the debate formats that they have, where actually they put up like competing ideas and people actually go back and forth and like debating on them. That's I think the most interesting thing, and I think it captures the whole feeling of this ecosystem is like about competition and best ideas win. And I think that's really good for this ecosystem to really move fast and keep growing, because while there's competition within crypto itself, but there's also like competition of crypto versus all tradition, the other ways we could be doing things. And I think crypto really needs to focus on still how do we grow as fast as possible, because on a global scale, the whole industry is still like very small, right? Like we might be in the trillions of dollars of assets, but that's still like under 1% of the entire financial market. And so that's really, I think, what people here are really focused on is how do we grow to where it's like 10%, 20%, 100% of the financial markets are on crypto.
So I imagine you get in touch with a lot of builders there, Nikita. So how much of a pain point is brand protection for them? Like your main
I mean
thing?
that's a good question. And we are seeing like that companies of basically all sizes are getting hit by this, right? And it's something that people are seeing as a new part really of their security stack. Before, everybody, if you're building in crypto, you have a smart contract, you have to have an audit. That was like the default thing, right? You need to have an audit. You need that as like, if you don't have an audit, like nobody's using your protocol, right? That's it. Now companies are discovering, hey, we actually have more to the security stack than just audits. It doesn't mean forget audits. It means audits plus all these other security areas. There's operational security, making sure your team doesn't get hacked. And then there's brand protection, right? This is making sure your users and your community doesn't get hacked, doesn't get drained. And this is extremely important because building a community is quite difficult. And every user that gets hit by a scam, by a phishing attack, by an impersonation, that's a user that's just gone from the ecosystem. They've churned, they're not using your product because they're probably gone from crypto even as a whole, not to mention just, your specific product. It's damage to your reputation, but it's also real damage to your TVL, to your user count, and all of these other areas. And so we've just been really focused on spreading the message that, hey, like, a solution exists. The solution is, works great. We find all of the impersonators of your brand, we find the impersonators of your team, and we take them down. And the interesting is, one, like, projects of all sizes are being hit. It's not just, the big exchanges or certain really large brands. The moment you launch and have some success, you might still be testnet phase. But if you're even on testnet, but there's hype around your project, there's excitement, there's like growing user base, you're going to have these impersonations happening. And then the other piece too is that we're seeing that team impersonation is on the rise too. Before, it was just, they clone your main brand, your main Twitter profile's logo, they post some scams, users click them, and they get drained. But now they're going a lot further with, your founders are being impersonated, your C-suite, your DevRels, your BDs. They're targeting people all over, right? Like, they impersonate your BD, they start messaging people on Telegram. They're like, hey, let's do a deal, let's do a partnership, let's get on a Zoom call or whatever it is, and then they, there's drainer links, there's malware. They're really finding that, whereas before we always saw the same kind of type of attack over and over, they're really starting to spread because they're realizing, okay, one, the AI tools to generate fake accounts and all this stuff, it's so easy now. And they can really experiment with the attack surface and really target you. If you're an executive, they're probably going to target you. Hey, like, I'm the CEO of another company, CEO to CEO, let's do a deal. I'm really interested in your company. Let's, and that then gets you excited. It makes you think there's like a good business opportunity here. And that's what they take advantage of, right? So, it's companies of all sizes are being targeted, and they're seeing that in order for their partnerships to remain in a great state, they need to protect their employees' brands, and then for their users to stay safe, they need to protect their core company brand.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's like an issue that's going to be even more present in the future with all these voice cloning stuff that's happening, right? So if you're like, I don't know, like a favorite YouTuber, someone is like uploading a video once a week or whatever, even if it's just like crypto related, your voice is out there, you get all the data that you can get and just load them into an AI voice cloner and just like had the voice cloned, and then, I don't know, message you via Telegram, send you a fake voice note in Discord, fake voice notes, etc., etc. So Nikita, I think it's a good topic to talk about. If a brand like didn't decide to go with brand protection, but what can the actual user really do for themselves, right? I think this is like some general advice would be great to hear for the users and listeners watching right now. My personal favorite is a hardware wallet, if I can start with that. Because, like, as you guys know, maybe I'm doing support for Revoke.cash as well, and what we see often is like malware being the number one source for people getting drained, really. And malware is like easily avoidable if you're using a hardware wallet. You can just like mainly ditch it. You cannot 100% be sure, but you can mainly ditch it if you have a hardware wallet, if you have like set up the seed phrase properly, kept the seed phrase offline, didn't have any digital backups of your seed phrase. Then like a hardware wallet, which is, we talked about this before, like $100 or something, is like the best entry that you can get to protect yourself like from one thing only, and it is malware.
One point on hardware wallets, there's actually something interesting from at Breakpoint, is that they have this Seeker, Solana Seeker phone, right? And that actually has a hardware wallet built in, which is pretty cool. How they separate it on the like software level, like let's say your phone got infected with malware, would that hardware wallet be compromised or not? I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to double check that, but I think they have some physical kind of separation there.
I think they're using a secure chip on the phone.
Yes. So I believe if your phone is compromised, your keys should still not be compromised in this case. Unlike certain other, potential, more software only kind of phones. There's or like software only, wallets. Although a lot of wallets now start to make use of certain like secure enclaves and this kind of stuff available on like certain Apple devices and other areas. So there, even if it's not like a crypto native phone, there are ways to build still a kind of a hardware secured wallet. But that doesn't remove the fact that you still need a cold wallet. It's just that's like an extra layer of security that is quite nice. And lots of people are now launching them, right? We have the classics like Ledger, but there's tons and tons of other companies building out their own, cold wallet solutions. There's lots of them. You can kind of explore various costs too. Some are as low as like $10, $15. So there's really no excuse not to have one. And yeah, you store them is also important, right? Having backups of your seed phrases. Now it's honestly cheap enough that you can even potentially have like backups of your cold wallet, not to mention just like the seed phrase written down, but you could probably even just keep like, $10, you can buy like 3 or 4 of these. And yeah, I think in this case, it's just like you want to make sure that
Nikita, can we just chime in
Yeah.
on that? Because like for the average people
yeah.
listening right now, they might be thinking like, Nikita, what is he talking about? Like cheaper than securing my seed phrase. But you have to imagine that if you have your seed phrase like written down on a piece of paper and someone finds that piece of paper, they can just enter your seed phrase wherever they want and restore the wallets. And with these backups in form, like let's say hardware wallets scattered around multiple places, they still have to have access with the pin or guess the pin to be able to access the wallet address.
That's a good point. Yeah, because storing even a backup cold wallet somewhere might be better than just having the seed phrase written down, because like you mentioned, somebody finds it, maybe you have like a friend over, maybe they're like, hanging around your room or wherever you're keeping your stuff, right? Like you never know what can happen, right? Like people have cleaners over at their house, and the cleaners, their job is to literally turn everything upside down, right? Like and so yeah, it's just like even if that seed phrase is found, like, ideally you keep it in a safe, right? If it is written down, if it's not in a safe, then it's in some form. Then even at least this password protection is helpful, right? There's kind of like debates on what can happen. Like, what if like there's like water damage to this thing, and if it's written down, then it might be better. There's also like little like metallic kind of backups you can have as well. So there's kind of like slightly different risk factors with each one there. But I think really it's about just ensuring that, just because it's in your house, at least it needs to be at least in a safe. Like just written down, like folded underneath your bed or something is good, but it's not good. It's not as great as it can be.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Like, I think if I had to summarize, like, what are the main advantages of hardware wallets, mainly two: isolation from online threats, where you get like this is space where you don't get like phished so directly, and also you have like this reduced risk or like key exfiltration or phishing, mostly because you have like the protection in place. Would be nice, I think, to have like a comparison between like the main wallets. I don't think for this session or for another one, but Ledger versus Trezor or Keystone, all the ones that are mostly well known. I think when you are like some years in the space, you have like one or two from different main providers. So it would be nice to see like your experiences on this as well. But yeah, and I think on the Ledger side of thing, I think they actually have something called Ledger Recover that actually helps for this, like for recovery, like your seed phrase, and have like a backup apart from your main wallet. So I think companies are already like thinking, and this is like a pretty much cheap solution, and when you have like your hard wallet already in place. I'm also curious to know, guys, like what is your opinion, for example, on hard wallets protect you at a certain extent. I think when you are like in an organization or a team, there are like some risks that also hard wallets cannot avoid, and we need to basically put like another layer on top of hard wallets. So I'm curious to know, like, apart from having a hard wallet and knowing how to use that, what are like your main key recommendations when it comes to security, mostly for teams and companies building in the space that might be here in this tech space?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things we can talk about there. One main area I would say is just like one, obviously around like proper multi-sig usage and all of these kinds of areas, like especially for teams. One thing that people are especially exploring are, certain pinned or hosted versions of like the Safe UI. Safe is one of the most used multi-sigs out there. I think the most used probably. And there are still cases of, front end compromises and this kind of area that we've seen in the past. This was related to like Bybit and some of the other areas. But I think the Safe team has actually been working on some improvements there around how to secure front ends and pin them and all this kind of stuff. And individual security researchers are also working on ways that, just because you use even just the whole idea of going to a website to use a multi-sig in itself, it's not like 100% secure because that site could be compromised as well. And so you need to be thinking that some people are looking at like pinning Safe on like IPFS and these kinds of areas to make sure that you have a kind of a static version of the site that is not going to change, so that the UI is always the same and the code on that UI is the same when it's connecting to your to the actual kind of on-chain multi-sig. And then the other parts we have, this is maybe more for I would say individual users, is around like reviewing your permissions, revoking permissions on the wallet itself. This is there's still a ton of contracts that use this. Many have started to kind of reduce the reliance on this, but it's still a very real problem, is that many interfaces will ask you for like unlimited permissions on your tokens, or very, very high token allowances. And this is another problem, right? Because if whoever has access to those permissions, or in some cases it's even an attacker that's actually done it, maybe sitting there waiting to remove drain tons of your funds, right? This is actually what we see, but there's some cases where this is an issue with actual site, like legitimate sites getting compromised. But very often, if you have a large token allowance in your wallet, this actually may be like potentially a phishing site you connected to days or weeks ago that is still active, because oftentimes what the attacker will do is they might not steal all your funds right away because they see, hey, there's like maybe $500 in here. I'm not even going to bother stealing that. What they do is but there's that hook in your wallet that they can use to steal the funds, and they wait until you deposit more. And this is where even like that cold hot wallet separation, even that can still be a little bit dangerous, because let's say you have your cold wallet, you have your hot wallet, but if your hot wallet is compromised and you don't know about it, and you're going to make a larger transaction, you're say gonna make a trade, you want to put in a new position, and you're like, okay, I'm going to move 10K into my hot wallet to then go use that. You move that 10K, the scammers watching the hackers watching your wallet on chain. The moment they see those funds deposited, immediately that unrevoked approval is used, and they will drain the funds immediately. And many people are very confused in this case, because all they see is their funds just disappeared and they didn't click anything, they didn't do anything. It's because the compromise was already done weeks ago. Maybe if you see anything else, if you have any other advice there, or some cases interesting cases you've seen around this.
Yeah, like the thing you said, Nikita, with the wallet address separation, I think this is one of the most crucial ones, because as Juan also asked about, like what you can see in people, like let's say you are a signer for a team, right? And you have like an signing approval that you can like sign away funds with if you're using the multi-sig. Please do not use the address for your day-to-day life in Web3. Like, do not do the signing for your company's funds or whatever with the wallet address that you're minting your NFTs on a random Friday night on X or whatever. This is like terrible practice. You shouldn't do that. Only use it for the purpose of signing stuff on the multi-sig. Then again, like I think like general like wallet separation is good. So have a burner wallet, maybe have a marketplace wallet or like a trading wallet where you are like swapping funds and having approvals to contracts, and then only treat it like as a temporary container. So if you want to sell something or swap something, then the funds end up in this temporary wallet, then they get swapped, and then you send it back to the vault or the hot wallet or whatever. So this is like common practice we also teach at Boring Security, for example. Revoking approvals, I mean, I'm doing support for Revoke, as I just said, revoke.cash. Check your approvals like regularly. Check it all on all the chains that you're using, not only mainnet if you're using mainnet, but also if you're using, I don't know, Base, for example, right? Check your approvals on Base. What I've seen, I think last week there was a case on Twitter where Scam Sniffer reported something where someone fell for a phishing scam, and they actually fell for victim for an address poisoning scam, and they sent away $10 million in tokens. And I always ask myself, like, if I'm doing a transaction, like as a single individual, right? Why am I doing a transaction of the volume of $10 million and not do like a test transaction of $1, $10, maybe $100, right? Before, and send over and see if the funds arrive where they are supposed to arrive. And I'm just like YOLOing $10 million in a one click, and then everything is gone. It's like, do 10 transactions, you lose 1 million if it goes wrong, but please do not send $10 million like as individual over the blockchain.
Yeah,
it's like crazy to
the
me.
fact that people just copy paste, an address when sending a transaction of that size is pretty insane. And the fact that it's like copy pasted from just like transaction history without like kind of double checking and kind of just eyeballing numbers. I just wonder, like, do they just have that much money that maybe that's not a lot of money to them? Maybe that's.
Yeah. I know that, for example, Etherscan in some cases like tag you when there is like a spam transaction. Some scanners are trying to, I think, address that problem, but yeah, it's like a really big issue. I also wanted to mention that on the revoke side of things, like people that maybe here in this tech space never revoke like the approvals on the wallet. Basically, when you make like any transaction on the blockchain, you need to connect your wallet, you need to approve the transaction, and that's like something that you're approving. So every transaction that you on the blockchain has an approval, and that approval can be also pretty much revoked in a few clicks, like Revoke Cash, where Wimi is also working there. You can do that, I would say, 1-2 minutes. Wimi, like how much time does it take to do that? Really nothing.
Yeah,
So
like if you get used to it, it's probably even less. It's like a 30-second check or whatever, like once a week or something.
Yeah, it's really easy to do, and it's good to also put that as in your security, I would say, standard. Like if you can do it like at least once per month, I would say that's something good, because if you are like doing regular transactions with that wallet, that's something really helpful. And I know, for example, that some hot wallets, for example, that people also use a lot, like Trust wallets, actually have this embedded directly in the wallet, so you don't need to go to like a third-party application, but you can do it directly in the wallet. And more wallets right now are applying this as well. So definitely, this is something that needs to be standardized, I would say, across like crypto in general. Like, yeah, remove your approvals when you make transactions, when you interact with the blockchain as a general.
Yeah, and maybe just one final piece of advice before we wrap up is there's this interesting project called Ethos as well, that I think more and more people are starting to know about and kind of like follow along with, and it's basically a reputation protocol where people can basically build up their own reputation, vouch for each other, point out kind of like scammers or dishonest people. This isn't just for like, wallet drainers and this kind of stuff. This is just in general. The purpose is meant to be about people's personal reputation, credibility. Do they follow through on deals and this kind of stuff? But it's actually been quite heavily used by people to kind of weed out these more hard to find scammers, like accounts that might have been quite popular. Maybe they have like 50K followers. They've been running a community for a while, but they've actually been running rug pulls in the background, or using a lot of actually running some sort of pump and dump scheme where you think people are legitimately like buying certain tokens, but they're actually just like deployed a ton of accounts to create fake volumes and this kind of stuff. I know certain people like Bo from Pudgy Penguins actually uses Ethos quite heavily, and they actually go out and slash certain scammer accounts quite actively. And so you can check out the reputation of accounts there. And so if you're following an account that is often doing certain deals, but maybe they message you and they're like, oh, we have this special promotion or something else, or they're just promoting a new project and you're kind of researching, is this something you should put your money into or not? It's definitely a good platform to check out. They're solving this problem from the opposite angle. We're hunting the scammers, taking them out. They are doing that as well, but also they're building up the credibility of which are the legitimate accounts as well, and really focus on the reputation angle, which is, I think, the more ways you can check the credibility of something. With us, you can check the website, you can check, for sure labeled malicious accounts, but this is more about the credibility of an individual and will they follow through on what they're doing, or do they have some sort of kind of nefarious acts in the background. So yeah, that definitely quite a useful one.
Yeah, I always flag the scammers that enter my DMs. If they send me a DM, say, hey, do you want to work for a project? We need some ambassadors for the new play to earn game. I always just leave them a nice negative Ethos review. So at least if someone goes the way and looks them up, they will actually see people left them a negative review, which is good to see, as you said, Nikita, because sometimes it's not that obvious. If you're searching on Twitter, for example, people might not have been called out publicly, but if you're using Ethos, for example, you might have a chance to find a certain handle or whatever and see that they are up to no good.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Trey, I think there's we talked about quite a few interesting tools this today. I think the main thing really for people to stay safe out there is, again, remember everything for those the conferences. Remember what we've said about conference travel. Not publishing your live location, not traveling, with all your your hardware wallets, all this kind of stuff. For more personal protection, make sure to revoke your permissions. And as you're building out your community, make sure you're protecting them from scammers, and make sure you're thinking about when is the time that you're hitting that, you're starting to build up the excitement, you're starting to build up the community. The moment you gain popularity, there's going to be people impersonating your brand. There's going to be people impersonating your team. We're seeing this in B2B as well. Even if you're not direct to consumer, your DevRels, your BDs, all of these people are being impersonated. So think about the strategy of how you're going to protect your users and your business partners. So yeah, I think we can wrap on that. We can probably say we'll say goodbye. Thanks everyone for watching, and have a great day. Do swidania.
Awesome. Hasta luego.
Bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.